All right, so I have a lot of questions asking about coil springs and what coil springs that I run. The coil springs that are my favorite is either to take the front stock, which is this one, coil spring from the front, and put it in the back and run F250, this spring, run the F250 front springs. So that's one option. I also run the Tahoe, which is this one, Tahoe rear coil springs in the back of the 9802s or 92 to 97s and any bubble Ford or square body. That's my setup that I like to do. Like I said, I like to take the front springs out of the front and move them to the back and run that F250 coil spring right there in the front, or take and put the F250 coil springs in the front and put the Chevy Tahoe rear coil spring in the back. That gives me the right height. It extends my shocks all the way in the back to where it's holding the frame. There's a bunch of good things that comes from it. So this coil spring right here, you can see the height difference. This right here is a big block Chevy spring from like a 70s model car, GM. I've ran those in the past. They still allow the suspension to move and you get maximum height out of your front suspension with the ball joint, you know, mashed all the way, A-arm all the way on the frame, almost the same as doing the F250s. You know, these springs are everywhere. You can go to any salvage yard and pull these. They're there. This is just a stock. This right here is just a stock Ford front coil spring. Works good in the back. You take this part here and put right on the axle housing, and you can weld it or non-wire it. It's a little bit bigger than the basket or the pocket where it sits on the housing, but if you're allowed to non-wire it or weld it, you know, it works perfect. This one here is a Ford F250 coil. It's a lot taller, you can see. It's a lot taller than any of those. It also mashes the front suspension to the maximum height that it can go without the rubber bushing underneath the A-arm. You take it out and let it go all the way up, and it, you know, your suspension still works. It's still free floating with give for the officials, etc. This right here is a good example of two rear coil springs. These are out of a Chevy Tahoe. It's a little bit shorter, but the spring rate on it's a lot stronger. And these are out of a factory, just everyday Ford, you know. I used to have a set of the ones you buy to get rid of the airbags. They're pretty good, but they're short, so you know they don't extend it up high enough in the back for my liking. I like my cars to sit up pretty good in the back, but when you put the F250s in the front, it gives you that rake that you want. This is also an option. You can get these like on the internet cheap. This is just a coil spring spacer. You can put this down in the bottom of your front A-arm and then put your coil spring back on it and put it back together. So that's one option. It's just this coil spring spacer. Coil spring literally sets up inside of it like that. It's got a spot where you turn it where it sits flat, and it just spaces it up like that, about an inch, whatever its height here is, probably about an inch spacer. So that's also an option. You can get that pretty cheap off the internet for like Jeeps and cars like that, so trucks. That's the options. That's a little bit on the coil springs for stock class. That's what I like to do. That's what works good for me. So a bunch of different ones, bunch of different heights. Hopefully this helps people, give you a little bit of options to go pull them from the yard. So I appreciate it. Hope this helps you guys out.